There's two disaster areas after northern coasts are hit by a big earthquake. 6 people are dead.
An earthquake measuring 8.2 has struck off the coast of Chile. At least 6 people are dead and 3 seriously injured. It triggered a small tsunami which hit the north of the country. The biggest wave was reported at 2.3 metres. Well, tens of thousands of people have had to flee from their homes, and roads out of Iquique, that's the city closest to the epicentre of the quake, were gridlocked. This report is from Emily Buchanan.
10 to 9 in the evening, last-minute shopping before dinner. And then, suddenly, the terrifying tremors. The ground shook as people ran out of the supermarket.
Arica, que registra la violencia del sismo.
The shelves shaking so violently, goods were just thrown onto the floor. Nearby, in the port city of Arica, the moment of the quake. All one woman could do was pray as her house shook precariously. Outside, you can hear the sound of walls and windows breaking before the lights went out. The pitch darkness in this district was broken only by a huge fire. People were desperate to flee the area, but they faced mayhem in the streets. A few had been killed by collapsing walls or from heart attacks. It was very strong and it went on a long time, this woman cried. Another said, the police have told us to leave. But it was hard to find shelter. The hospitals themselves were being cleared of patients. The government has declared a state of emergency to stop looting. About 300 inmates escaped from a women's prison. Chile's President, Michelle Bachelet, promised she would continue to work to confront the emergency and protect people and their families. Scientists in California showed estimates of how a tsunami could roll across the Pacific from the epicenter near the coastal town of Iquique. The fault line here is prone to earthquakes. There have been several big ones in the last 100 years, and they predict more.
We expect about another 8.8, 8.9 earthquakes here sometime in the future. Could be tomorrow, could be in 50 years. We do not know when it's going to occur.
So far, for such a large quake, the death toll has been low, and fears for giant waves in Chile haven't materialised. Emily Buchanan, BBC News.
Well, let's just discuss some of the science behind this earthquake now. We can talk to Dr. Brian Bapty, who's from the British Geological Survey and joins us from Edinburgh. Thank you very much for being with us. Just talk us through, if you like, the geology of this. How rare is an earthquake like this in this particular vicinity?
Well, the coast of South America is no stranger to these very large earthquakes. In 2010, there was a magnitude 8.8 earthquake, several hundred times bigger than this one, quite a long way further south. So there are many earthquakes of this kind of size on the subduction zone that lies along the west coast of South America. And what's really happening is that one of the Earth's tectonic plates, the Nazca plate, is being pushed down or subducted underneath South America. And as those two plates move past each other, that releases huge amounts of energy in the form of earthquakes. And the subduction zone itself, or the plate interface, is highly segmented, so different parts fail at different times. So, for example, the several hundred kilometres further south failed in 2010, but this particular segment hadn't failed for around about 100 years or so. So perhaps it wasn't a great surprise that a large earthquake has occurred here.
Yeah, it's quite dramatic pictures we're just looking at. In terms of the damage and the injuries caused, how well prepared do you think Chile is for an earthquake like this?
Well, clearly Chile is relatively well prepared for these large earthquakes, and the number of casualties so far again reinforces that. But again, I would stress that this is relatively early days, and the full extent of the damage and the casualties may not be realised yet. But in parallel with the 2010 earthquake, again, the number of casualties there was relatively low, and buildings appear to be very well constructed to withstand earthquakes, or at least not collapse completely and kill hundreds of thousands of people.
Now, there was, as we were saying, a sort of tsunami effect as well. We're just hearing actually that Chile has called off the tsunami alert that was declared after that earthquake, but even so, there were very high waves seen, 2.3 metres, I think. Is that to be anticipated?
Yeah, an earthquake of this size, when it occurs underneath the ocean, can generate a tsunami. In this case, the tsunami appears to be relatively localized, so there were high amplitude waves, 2 meters or so, close to on the part of the coast that was close to the epicenter, but further away the waves were a lot smaller. In fact, sometimes very large earthquakes in this particular place can generate tsunami that travel all the way across the Pacific. So, for example, in 1960 there was a magnitude 9.5 in South America, the largest ever recorded, and it generated a tsunami that caused quite a lot of damage in Japan.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for being with us. That's Dr. Brian Batchley there from the British Geological Survey in Edinburgh.